I am sitting here, guys, and I need to move on to the next fragrance, but I just don't want to. I just really don't want to. Hello and welcome. So today, guys, I have a very exciting video because we are going to debunk the myth that leather fragrances are only or mostly for males. I have here 11 fragrances that all have leather notes and that I think are absolutely stunning and perfect for females during the winter and fall seasons. Now, these fragrances are unisex, so they can be used by males also, but they are definitely fragrances that I think that if you try them, you will like. But before we jump right in, if this is your first time here, I'm Arahi, and in this channel, we love to talk about fragrances, makeup, and fashion. If that sounds like the type of content that you're interested in, then please consider subscribing, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a comment below. Let's go. So the first fragrance that we're going to talk about today is by Marc-Antoine Barrios, and that is GANYMEDE. So GANYMEDE is a warm, spicy leather fragrance with a touch of woodiness and some oud. Now this fragrance, guys, has the smell of like rich. I can't explain it. Let me know if you've ever tried GANYMEDE because I know it's not very new. I just picked it up. I think it was like September or October of last year. But from the moment I sniffed it, I told myself, what cave have you been in? Because my goodness, this fragrance is absolutely stunning. And it lasts on me about 6 to 7 hours, and it has a moderate sillage, which I'm glad, because if this were a beast, this would be crazy, because this is a really, really strong type of scent. This is definitely a fragrance that has more of like a moderate sillage, and I would say after 3 to 4 hours, it becomes a scent bubble for me. Not a skin scent, but it becomes like a bubble, like the smell goes with me wherever I go. And the other thing is that for me, this is truly a unisex fragrance. This is not just for males or females. I think I definitely see a very wealthy man, very well dressed, wearing this fragrance, whether he's wearing casual clothes or he's wearing something a bit more formal, but this is definitely rich man smell. And for women, it's like an air of wealth and like sophistication. Like she's so interesting. Like we want to know more about her, but she's not really readily accessible. I don't know. That's what I get from this fragrance, but I absolutely love it. And when I wear it, it definitely gets me compliments. So the next two fragrances are from the same fragrance house, and it's Dries Van Noten. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But we are going to start. They're both, of course, leather fragrances, and I absolutely love them. The first one is Fleur du Mal. Now, Fleur du Mal is a stunning leather fragrance, guys, and you should not be surprised because the perfumer behind this, the nose behind this fragrance, is none other than Quentin Bish. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has so many incredible fragrances in his portfolio. This is a fruity, floral, sweet leather fragrance that at the dry down is a bit powdery. I absolutely love wearing this fragrance when I want to feel a bit alluring. You know, this is like the type of fragrance that pulls people to you. It's really, really a stunning leather fragrance. It has a lot of character, and I just find that it's almost like a conversation piece. When you wear it, people not only, you know, approach you because it's like you're pulled by this very addictive kind of scent, but it's also that there's just something about it that brings on conversation. Like, what is it? What is in that fragrance? What is in that perfume? That's the type of questions that you get. As far as performance, I get about 4 to 5 hours from this fragrance, and then it also becomes a scent bubble. And I would say it's even a little bit more than a scent bubble, but I think I can attribute that to the sillage because this fragrance doesn't have a moderate sillage. It has like a bit above a moderate sillage. It's not a strong sillage, but it's definitely a fragrance that leaves a trail. But the trail, my understanding from people that have discussed it with me, is kind of like a very smooth type of fragrance. But then when people come close to you, they can really, really smell the beauty of the fragrance. For me, this fragrance is definitely one that leans feminine. Even though it's a leather fragrance, it definitely leans feminine. And the dominant notes that I get here are peach, jasmine, and suede. Those three notes, I think I get all the way from the beginning all the way to the end. In the end, I don't smell the peach as much. I think it's more a function of the jasmine and a bit of the suede. But this fragrance, guys, is just a beautifully stunning and beautifully done leather fragrance that is perfect for females, but I think it's also perfect for males. Now, the next fragrance that I also told you is from Dries Van Noten is Rock the MYRRH. Now, I can tell you that Rock the MYRRH has definitely rocked my world. This is an incredible, oh, guys, this fragrance is so addictive. The only way that you will not love this fragrance is if you do not like the note of myrrh. Otherwise, and you know I never recommend blind buying, otherwise, if you want to give this a shot, I think this is a fragrance that you just can't go wrong with. This fragrance is a bit sweet. It is spicy and warm and woody. There is such a combination of not just notes, but of chords. Like, it's just a perfect fragrance for the fall and winter seasons. By the way, guys, these fragrances that I'm going to share with you today are not fragrances that I recommend that you use during the spring or summer. I really believe that these fragrances are more like fall and winter, preferably for me, winter. Some of these are straight up just winter fragrances, because I think that if you wear them when it's a bit warm outside or it's not very chill, you're definitely going to choke yourself. They're going to be overwhelming. These are fragrances with a lot of character and a lot of oomph behind them, if you know what I mean. So for me, this fragrance opens with straight up myrrh and pink pepper. And I have to tell you, I get myrrh and pink pepper all day, every day when wearing this fragrance. This is not a linear fragrance at all, guys, but it's also not very complex. There's others that I'm going to discuss with you today that are quite complex. The journey is like, sometimes you can't even figure out what's going on. But with Rock the MYRRH, it is definitely warm and spicy, and everything is around the myrrh. The myrrh is dominant and present from beginning to end. But when it opens up also with that pink pepper. That's also a very dominant note to my nose. And then it transitions to a patchouli that is not like overwhelming, but it is present. The patchouli is beautifully done. I don't know, guys, it's just such an awesome fragrance. But all throughout the journey, you get that myrrh, and that myrrh is so beautifully done. I get about 6 to 7 hours from this fragrance, and I would say that this has a moderate to strong sillage, and this one for sure is unisex. The next fragrance on my list is a fragrance, guys, that I've wanted for so long, and I finally got it very recently, and oh my goodness, guys, I was tempted to buy the limited edition of this fragrance because it has some Swarovski crystals. I'm sure by now you probably know which fragrance I'm talking about. So I'm talking about Bond No. 9 Chelsea Nights. Now, guys, this fragrance is one of those fragrances that has such a complex journey. This is when I said that there would be fragrances on this list that have quite a complex journey. Well, Chelsea Nights is definitely almost at the top of the list. I think there's only one that will top this one. But this fragrance, although it has a complex journey, that doesn't mean that, you know, it's all over the place or that it doesn't have a defined scent profile. No, it definitely does. This is definitely, for me, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a cacao. all day, every day, immediately. This is a cacao and leather fragrance for me. And those notes are very present from the first sniff until the dry down. And this was an immediate love for me. When I received it and I sniffed it, I was blown away. Like I ran immediately to my husband and I told him, how do you feel about this fragrance? Because this is really a fragrance that has a lot of character, a lot of personality. It's not one easy to decipher. It's not one that I've smelled on other people. It's just a collection of positives from my standpoint. At the base of this fragrance, I get vanilla, suede, tonka bean, and patchouli. And it's like the most beautiful, creamy, dry down that I can possibly describe. And the beauty of this fragrance is that it's long lasting, guys. This is bordering on beast, at least on my skin. I get a good 7 to 8 hours from this fragrance. And when it comes to projection, the first 3 hours are pretty strong. And I would say like around the 4 hour mark, it becomes a very strong scent bubble. I don't even want to call it a scent bubble because it's not a demure scent at the 4th hour. It's just not as strong as the first 3 hours. I would also tell you that I haven't had a chance to look at Fragrantica or other, forums and blogs that are dedicated to fragrances. But for me, this is truly a unisex fragrance. Chelsea Nights is all about a fun and seductive individual who at the same time is like decadent and rich. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a feel of the fragrance. It's a very open-minded type of individual, and they are not afraid of decadence. That's the only way to put it. Pure decadence. The next 2 fragrances on my list are also from the same fragrance house, but these 2 fragrances for the longest time were at the top of my favorite leather fragrances. But in the past couple of years, a couple of fragrances have come out that have definitely toppled them from their stellar number 1 and number 2 spots in my collection. Even though these 2 are no longer the number 1 and number 2, they're still fragrances that I absolutely love with the note of leather. And I am talking about 2 fragrances from Memo Paris. I am talking about French leather. This fragrance is, I don't know why, I really don't understand why, but it seems to be a bit polarizing. I find nothing polarizing about this fragrance. As a matter of fact, guys, I know that the note of leather is here and I do pick up on it, even though I'm going to tell you right now, the leather note in this fragrance is so faint, not weak, it's just very faint. It's one of those notes that is present from the opening until the dry down and then continuously, but it's always like in the background in a very demure and faint kind of way. I think this fragrance is more about other notes and the entire journey of all of the notes working with this very light leather. To me, the dominant notes in this fragrance are definitely, like I said, rose, leather, and then you have a touch of lime that never leaves my nose once I sniff it. And then at the dry down, what I get is a beautifully done musk that plays very well with that smooth leather. This is an incredibly smooth, elegant, and sophisticated fragrance. This is the epitome of an elegant leather fragrance. It is so smooth. This is a fragrance that you can use for the office. You can use it for occasions where you don't want to overwhelm anybody with your smell. I mean, I am telling you, this for me is a lifer when it comes to leather fragrances. And the funny thing is that you could argue, is there even leather in this fragrance? But the more you use it, the more you come to acquaint yourself with that faint leather note that is in the background all throughout the journey. This fragrance definitely leans feminine, and I get a good solid 6 to 7 hours with it. And after that, it definitely becomes more of a skin scent. It borders, depending on how much I spray, it borders between being a skin scent and becoming like a scent bubble. I also get a moderate sillage from this fragrance. This is not one that's going to leave a trail for hours that, people are going to be following you and you're going to be leaving, your smell whenever you pass by an area. No, this fragrance is so smooth, I tell you. If you are looking for a beginner leather fragrance, I think that French leather would be perfect for you. Okay guys, now I have to tell you, this next fragrance, like I told you, is also from MYRRH. But this fragrance was the #1 leather fragrance in my fragrance collection for the longest time. I'm talking about years. And to this day, I am still in love with this fragrance. It's just that there's a couple of other fragrances that have been launched recently that have me on a chokehold, and I just can't get past them. And every time I want to bring myself, because we're in the season to use this fragrance, but every time I want to use it, I end up using one of those 2 other fragrances that I'm going to tell you about later. But anyway, guys, I am talking about African leather. This fragrance, guys, opens with the biggest burst of cardamom and saffron. It is spicy and peppery, warm and like spicy, and it has like the most beautiful note of leather. African leather has a very distinctive leather note. This is not, for me at least, this is not a demure. Oh no, this is not a demure leather. This is a very present leather, and upon first sniff, you are going to get the leather. It's just not going to be in your face. What's going to be in your face is that cardamom and that saffron. So you have to like cardamom and saffron, because if not, you'll never make it through the opening. But once that phase ends, then you start to notice how the leather note starts to increase. And it continues to increase until the dry down. At the dry down, I'm left with the most beautiful leather and musk fragrance with a backdrop of some spices. This, guys, is long lasting. I get 7 to 8 hours at a minimum. That's without overspraying. If I overspray, then I definitely get probably around 10 12 hours if I really overspray. The problem with overspraying this fragrance is that that leather note is really present and it's really dominant, and to me, to my nose, it's really strong. What I love about this fragrance is that even though it is a commanding presence, it's not something that is so loud that, you're just going to make everybody around you uncomfortable, because with the notes in this fragrance and the potency of the fragrance, this would be quite intolerable. But guys, I really highly recommend, if you've never smelled, if you've never gotten your nose on African leather, please get your nose on it. Believe me when I tell you, it will be a worthy experience. Okay guys, are you ready? So this is one of the fragrances that took over the #1 and 2 spots in my leather fragrances collection. And this fragrance was just launched in 2023. It's from a fragrance house that I only have one other fragrance from. I think like in total, they only have like 4 fragrances. It's a Middle Eastern fragrance house. And when I tell you, I am beyond in love with this fragrance. And now during the winter, it's this fragrance and another one that are just like driving me insane. I absolutely love this leather fragrance. I am talking about Tomovici ZENOBIA. Now guys, when I say, ooh, oh my goodness, ooh la 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 la, oh, when I say this is the ultimate journey in leather fragrances, please get your nose on this fragrance. I already shared the notes with you, so now let me tell you about the journey that this fragrance takes me on. When I first sniff this fragrance, for me, it opens up immediately. Like, no confusion whatsoever. The orange blossom and the black currant. But the orange blossom trumps the black currant. It's almost like the orange blossom is definitely the defining and opening note, and the black currant is like accompanying the orange blossom. Then immediately after that, I start to get small doses of a very smooth vanilla. I cannot explain this vanilla to you. I can only compare it, and I'm only comparing it. I'm not saying that it's as good, but I'm only comparing it to how Guerlain does vanilla. It's a very smooth vanilla. She doesn't come at you, boom, vanilla's here. No, it's like a very smooth introduction into vanilla. And it's paired with like jasmine and orchid. And those three, the vanilla, the jasmine, and the orchid, keep you entertained for quite a bit. I would say like about 5-7 minutes. And then as you start to get into the dry down, you start to pick up on all these other notes that have been blended masterfully. And at the dry down, what I get is vanilla, saffron, and leather with a faint jasmine and orchid in the background. But that combination, guys, which is unique to any other fragrance in my collection, is something that is so addictive because this has been done so well. Guys, by the way, I think I got carried away with sniffing this fragrance and forgot to talk to you about performance. This fragrance, guys, I would say it's a beast. It's definitely a beast. This is not one that just disappears. I have tested this fragrance full days. I mean, at this point, I'm past testing because I've used it so much. I've slept with it. I've done just about everything with this fragrance. And let me tell you, this is the type of fragrance that wherever you overspray, if you shower and you don't scrub, you will still smell this fragrance on your skin after you shower. That's all I'm going to say. I get a solid 10 to 12 hours from this fragrance. And it's around the 5 to 6 hour mark where it becomes a very strong scent bubble. The sillage of this fragrance is remarkable. Wherever you show up wearing this, especially if you overspray, you are going to get attention. People will approach you and they'll be looking at you like trying to figure out like, what is she wearing? Who is she? Why? You know how people get. This is that girl. This is it. I am not even going to try and define a type of individual for this fragrance because I think this fragrance is a masterpiece that anybody can adopt to their fragrance wardrobe. All right, guys. So since we've started to cover fragrances that truly have me on a chokehold, let's talk about another one that definitely has me on a chokehold. So this one will not come as a surprise. For the longest time, we were all waiting for this fragrance to become available. It was launched and then it like disappeared. You couldn't even get it overseas. And then all of a sudden, you could find it overseas, but not in the US. Now I know of one site that has it in the US and I will link it below. I don't have any affiliation with them. I'm not even sure that they have affiliation with anybody, but I did see before filming this video, because if not, I was not going to put this fragrance on here. I think you know that I am talking about YSL BABYCAT. I have heard so many things about this fragrance. I mean, this fragrance is bordering on controversial. Forget polarizing, controversial, right? So there's people that swear by it, that are terribly in love with it, that paid crazy money, that did everything they could to find this fragrance. And then there's people that got themselves a decant or a sample and they're like, well, I'm not impressed. What's the big deal? Whatever your opinion may be, this is just my opinion. I will respect yours and please respect mine. This is a masterpiece. This fragrance, and let me just address something else. There's also some comparisons to GANYMEDE when it comes to this fragrance. I think there is a vibe there. I'm not going to lie. There's definitely a vibe. They're not even similar, but it's like a vibe. It's like a feel that you get when you wear GANYMEDE and you wear this fragrance. I've actually worn them, one in each arm. And that was like one of the best days of my life because they are both exquisite. And I absolutely love them. But I have to tell you, YSL BABYCAT is in a league of its own. This to me is pretty heavy on vanilla. And the way that the vanilla and the leather have been blended, it is just absolutely exquisite. With this fragrance, I get a ton of pepper and saffron in the opening, and actually pepper and saffron stay with me throughout the journey. And then after that, I immediately start to get the vanilla, and there's a sweetness that comes in with the vanilla. So when the fragrance opens, there is a bit of sweetness to it, but when I start to pick up on the vanilla, I also start to pick up that the fragrance is like sweeter. And at the dry down, of course, I'm getting that pepper and saffron and vanilla, and of course that leather note is there, at least for me, from beginning to end. It is an absolutely stunning fragrance. I think that the other beauty of this fragrance is this is one that I think you can take to the office. Would I wear this to the office? No, not really, because to me this is a really special fragrance. To me, this is a formal occasion fragrance, but when I feel like wearing it, whether I'm going out casually or just hanging around the house, I'm going to spray it and wear it, because just do whatever you want to do. But that's basically how I see it. Now, when it comes to performance, to me, this is not a beast mode fragrance. I get a solid 6 to 7 hours with this fragrance. I never overspray it because I think it would be a bit much. There's just something about it. I don't know if it's resins. I don't know what is it, but I think that if you overspray, at least for me, it would be a bit much. I think it is just perfect when I spray it. And I get 6 to 7 hours. I get a moderate projection and moderate sillage. And to me, this is definitely a unisex fragrance. I don't think this leans feminine. I don't think this leans male. I think this is truly a unisex fragrance. So the next fragrance on my list is one that I think will not come as a surprise to you if you are a fragrance lover. This fragrance has been around for quite some time, and it is from Tom Ford, and I'm talking about White Suede. Now, this fragrance is like a musky, powdery, warm, spicy leather fragrance. And this, guys, is a 100 ml. And this is my second bottle. You know, since it's been out, this is my second bottle. And I have to tell you, I love this fragrance. This would be the only fragrance, yes, on this list that I say you could get away with wearing it during spring and even during the summer. But for me, during the summer would be for an evening occasion. This fragrance, to me, the beauty of this fragrance is that it's such like minimalistic elegance. You know, someone who wears all black or all white, and they are very smooth in their ways. They're very methodical, balanced, and very kind of measured, right? This is the type of fragrance that is not loud. It is just understated elegance to me, guys. This is a fragrance that you cannot go wrong with. I think this is a basic staple in every fragrance wardrobe. This is one that you can dress down, you can dress it up, you can use it for a formal occasion. This is the type of fragrance that I like to take when I travel, not necessarily to a resort during the summer, but for any other type of travel, whether it's personal or business. I find this fragrance to be quite versatile because I can wear it to the office, I can wear it to a formal occasion, I can wear it just to any type of gathering or meeting. This is definitely one of the most versatile leather fragrances that are out there. I really can't speak to another fragrance in my leather collection that is as easy to use and easy to pull as White Suede. This fragrance has, for me at least, I get a good 4 to 5 hours, and around the 4.5 hour mark, I definitely have to respray. I typically go around with some sort of travel size or decant of my fragrance. But this fragrance has moderate sillage and moderate longevity. But it is definitely a beautiful. The next two fragrances I am not going to spend a lot of time on because I have discussed both of these fragrances on my channel. Actually, one of them I just published a full detailed review on because I am absolutely obsessed with it. But let's start by talking about Une Nuit Nomade Sugar Leather. To me, guys, This is such a manageable leather fragrance. This has been done so beautifully, and I think this to me is definitely a unisex fragrance. But if I had to pick a lean, I would definitely say that this leans feminine, and it's mostly because it is definitely a sweet fragrance. It is not super ultra crazy sweet, but it is definitely a sweet fragrance. But this fragrance is very, very manageable. This is one that you could wear to the office. It's not as light and demure as White Suede from Tom Ford, but it is definitely a fragrance that is non-offensive. You could use it for all types of occasions. You could even get away with wearing this for date night. So this fragrance is definitely warm, spicy, with a prominent like caramel and cinnamon mix. It's also a bit balsamic and musky, and like I said before, this one is definitely one that I would only recommend for the fall and winter seasons. Now for this next one, I just uploaded a full detailed review, and this fragrance, guys, has me on a chokehold. Right now, this one is in competition with ZENOBIA from Tomovici for the #1 spot in my collection, but they are definitely in my #1 and #2 spots right now. This is from BDK, and I'm talking about Vanille Leather. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this fragrance because, as I said, and I will link it up here, there is a fully dedicated video for this fragrance. But basically, guys, this is an amber floral fragrance that is absolutely, oh my goodness, it is absolutely stunning. You know, when I sniff it, I can't help but smile. If I'm feeling a certain kind of way and I pull it and I sniff it, I don't know if you have a fragrance that does that to you. Do you have a fragrance that does that to you, that when you pull it and you smell it, like it just takes you to another world? Like, oh my goodness, this is so incredible, guys. There is a good bit of vanilla in this fragrance with a very smoothly done leather. It is definitely a leather that you can smell. It is not a very demure leather, but it's also not very potent. It's just balanced perfectly. And I think that the combination of the orange blossom with the vanilla and that leather note is just absolutely stunning. It is something so different. One thing I have said before, and I continue to get that, is that this fragrance gives me like Love Don't Be Shy kind of vibes, and it really does. But they're not the same. There's really no significant similarity. It's just that when I sniff it, it gives me that vibe. It like brings to my memory the experience with Love Don't Be Shy. At the dry down, this fragrance is a bit powdery, a little bit balsamic to me, and a little bit animalic. But it's animalic in the best way possible. It's not one that you need to be concerned about. And you also get that powderiness from a touch of iris, because I do pick up on a touch of iris. Like 5 minutes into the olfactory journey of this fragrance, I do pick up some iris. This is a fragrance that performs very well. I would say moderate projection and definitely a bit higher than moderate sillage. All right, guys, so this next fragrance, I know I've definitely discussed here on my channel. This fragrance is not new to my collection either. It's a fragrance that I've had for quite some time and that I really enjoy wearing. But this is one of those fragrances that is quite complex. Not only is the olfactory journey complex, but everything to me, the note combination, everything is quite complex, but it is masterfully done. Now, this is not a fragrance. I'm going to tell you right now, please don't overspray this fragrance because you will choke yourself. I'm talking about Guerlain Cherry Oud. Now, this fragrance to me, guys, is all about cherry, oud, leather, and rose. That's it. I know that I showed you all of the notes that are present in this fragrance, or the ones that, you know, Guerlain has disclosed. But I can tell you that what I get from beginning to end, and it's not linear, I'll talk about the journey in a minute, is cherry, oud, leather, and rose. So if you have a problem with any of those notes, I would recommend that you definitely get your nose on this fragrance prior to picking it up, because those 4 notes for me are quite dominant. This is a very strong fragrance. The strength of this fragrance does not come from the oud, so do not be concerned about that if you're wondering, wow, is this one of those oud fragrances that's just like, no. You know, Guerlain is very balanced in their fragrance DNA, right? But at the end of the day, this is one of the strongest fragrances that I have from all the Le Métier d'Art that I have in my collection. This is definitely the strongest. So from the opening, I get a very strong cherry. Like, guys, immediately, undoubtedly, this is definitely a cherry leather fragrance. I would say that the cherry opens and the leather closes, because at the dry down, like I said before, guys, I'm getting that cherry and that leather, the rose and the oud. But the rose and the oud at the dry down are in the background. They're not dominant and forward. They are in the background, because the stars of this fragrance are definitely the cherry and the leather. And it was very interesting to me when I first started my journey with this fragrance, because it said cherry oud, and when I tried it where I picked it up, I did immediately pick up on the cherry, and I did immediately pick up on some leather and a faint rose in the background, but the oud was not center stage, and I thought that this was truly going to be like a pure cherry and oud kind of fragrance, but it's not. To me, this is a cherry leather complex fragrance with a backdrop of rose and oud. Let me know if you've tried this fragrance, if you've gotten your nose on it, and do you agree with what I'm getting, right? Because, you know, fragrances are very subjective, so my journey could be totally different than what you're getting. I'm just curious. So we've reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to all of my new subscribers. Thank you so much for your support and the love, and I will see you in the next video.